Shall we get started?
Yep.
Okay. All right. All right. Good morning, good afternoon to everyone, and namaste. My name is Sreekanth Moni, Principal of Systematic and Strategic Innovation at Innomantra. I would like to welcome you all to this webinar series on innovation, the CXO Forum on Systematic Innovation Management. Today, we have the second webinar of the series. This webinar series is a joint initiative of Innomantra and Amplify to introduce and share various aspects of innovation. This forum is designed to bring together leading minds from industry, academia, and government agencies globally to strengthen innovation methods and reinvent organizations for growth and sustainability. This series will introduce and provide a roadmap based on the 8 innovation management principles outlined in the recently established series of international standards ISO 56000. During the past 15 years, innovation management experts from 50 countries have codified the principles of successful innovation initiatives. The result is a comprehensive framework for systematic innovation management, aligned with ISO's management system structures, which are adaptable to any organization's innovation needs and requirements. This forum will explore a common understanding of best practices for innovation management, aligning with the ISO innovation management system standards. This forum also provides an opportunity to interact with other leading innovators and develop actionable insights to drive the innovation process. This series will bring out ISO's principle of innovation management and also to help you assess where you stand as an organization in innovation process and thus plan for internal projects to grow your organization. The 8 principles based on the ISO 46000 standards will help explore the critical elements of an innovation management system. The community support for this webinar series is provided by the Indian Society for Quality on the theme Enabling Innovation Success Over and Over Again. Before we get started, I would like to introduce Innomantra and Amplify organizations. Innomantra is a leading digital innovation and intellectual property management consulting services firm headquartered in Bengaluru in India. It works with organizations to design and achieve their digital strategy from idea to implementation. Its signature threefold approach to innovation looks at overall business strategy, people, and functional systems in a digital ecosystem is globally recognized. Innomantra has a wide range of 100+ clients, ranging from small and medium businesses to Fortune Global 500 organizations. Amplify is a leading and consulting company headquartered in Stockholm, Sweden. Amplify is rooted in a strong Scandinavian innovation culture where innovation is practiced and researched at the forefront. Amplify has worked with multinational clients and contributed to innovation efforts all over the world for over 20 years. This hands-on experience from innovation projects has contributed to gain deep knowledge to come up with strategic perspectives of innovation. Today's webinar agenda includes talks by 2 eminent speakers, starting with Srimati Geetha Ramamoorthi, followed by Mr. Gunnar Storfeldt. We will also plan for a short Q&A session at the end of the webinar. Please do feel free to post questions on the chat window. Srimati Geetha Ramamoorthi brings with her over 3 decades of rich experience in the areas of transportation, digital transformation, operations, and finance. She has held various senior roles at Atkins. She's currently the managing director of KBR India and based out of Chennai. She is a Thinkers 360 thought leader and disruptive thinker for advancing the strategic direction of the business through innovation and organizational leadership. I would like to invite Srimati Geetha Ramamoorthi to share her thoughts on today's topic, reinventing innovation opportunities in engineering and construction industry for growth. Over to you, ma'am.
Can I just break in? It's Gunnar. We're experiencing some feedback, so please turn off your microphone when you're not speaking, because we have some feedback noises that we want to get rid of. So sorry for interrupting. Over to you, Geetha.
No worries, that's fine. I think that was much needed. Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank Lokesh, Innomantra, and Amplify for giving me the opportunity to be a part of this webinar. And also, I would like to thank Sri for giving me such a nice introduction. I'd like to share my screen and probably, maybe Santosh, if you could make me the host. I'd like to bring up a few slides to talk through this session. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I hope the slide is visible.
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so this is a fantastic opportunity, I think, to talk about the broader theme of innovation and innovation management, which Sri, you alluded to just a few minutes back, but also, the specific focus in terms of how can we look at innovation opportunities in the engineering and construction industry, which is really in the cusp of change and transformation as we speak, is going to be, I think, a valuable discussion for everybody in this forum. So first of all, I would like to start with basics again. What is innovation? And then there are different, theories or definitions that go around. But I think for people who are in any industry or doing any function, I think if you were to just break it down into something very simple, I think fundamentally the key is to see, if you're coming up with something new, a new idea or a new way of doing things, that will ultimately create value for your customers and stakeholders, because doing something different for the sake of doing it differently, is not really going to be worth the effort. I mean, if there's something that's working well and it's giving you what you're really looking for, then, you probably don't have too much of an opportunity there. But if you can look at what's next, how can you evolve it? How can you add more value? And is it solving a customer pain point? Then definitely, it becomes an innovation that truly, adds value and is celebrated. And then the key question, why at all innovate? I mean, there's a lot of history that goes on to say that companies that have innovated have been the most successful when you look back in the last 4 or 5 decades. But I think if you again try to simplify this whole context, it's really to see that if a company doesn't want to become irrelevant, and if it doesn't want to really lose business or customers, or even if it's grappling with productivity issues, it has to look at what should I do differently. Doing the same thing in multiple times or repeatedly is not going to give different results, but trying to do things differently in a way that's challenging the status quo, if it is really looking to transform an existing business model, or really trying to cater to a market need that hasn't been addressed in the past, or it's really about expanding the portfolio, bringing in new markets or products or services to market to meet a customer demand, then really you have to do something different. And that something different really for us could be innovation, because you need to really shake up all the baggage from the past and start thinking differently. And an organization that doesn't innovate really is going to stagnate and, to be honest, even perish. Now next comes the question, when to innovate. So I think there could be different answers to this, but again, if anybody can take a guess, in my view, it should be the best time to innovate is all the time, simply because I think the world around us keeps evolving. The industries that we all operate in, whether it is financial services or software or banking and finance or manufacturing, I think the world around us and the companies around us continue to evolve all the time, and therefore you can't stay stagnant. You can't believe that what you did yesterday is going to hold you in good stead in the future. So you've got to always keep looking at opportunities to get better. By innovating, I'm saying opportunities for improvement, opportunities for value enhancement, opportunities really to make this whole experience of what we're serving to our customers better. And which industry needs innovation? Again, there are a number of industries that have already been early adopters, and there are some that are in the process of innovating and driving some digital transformations or technological transformation. But there are 6 industries particularly that I'd like to call out, which have been really highlighted, in some of the recent studies, which need to really be, taking on innovation seriously. And those are education, agriculture, industrial manufacturing, hospitality, construction, airlines, because simply because these are really reaching out to larger populations. Today I'm going to talk about construction. So some of these industries like construction, agriculture have been at least 2-3 years back the least digitalized as per a McKinsey study report, and therefore certainly these are very, very ripe for innovation. So I would like to now specifically focus on the industry that I'm focusing on today, which is the architecture, engineering, and construction industry. So what is the overview looking like? Clearly, the industry has been facing challenges over decades. So pre-COVID, the industry was really almost, I would say, least innovative. But post-COVID, they also realized, and I think I'm speaking from my own experience, having been in SNC Lavalin, which is very much into engineering and to some extent into the construction phase. Clearly, the challenges that the stakeholders and the players in the industry have been talking about have been pretty significant. There's fragmentation of supply chain, huge productivity losses, and there's always a delay in schedule, and the ability to actually do things, with least disruption has also been, very, very poor. COVID actually caused a lot of disruption. A lot of companies either slowed down or they really, kind of exited, some of the kind of contracting models in the construction phase, like lump sum turnkey projects. So I think clearly this is an industry which is very much, a candidate for innovation, but also needs to take innovation holistically. And there's some statistics: 98% of construction projects have, typically come over budget, which is an appalling number, and 77% of them have suffered significant delays. And like I said, the major issues have been really, poor focus on risk identification and management. The same techniques that were used maybe 10, 15 years back were continued to be used. Project management was never a priority. And so most of the, issue handling was reactive. And with this, an industry which has been, decades old has been resistant to change. But however, all of these challenges, are now opportunities for the industry to turn around. In the last 2 decades, any guesses by what percent the productivity in the construction industry increased? Actually, it's been a mere 1%, and that's quite scary. When compared to that, the rest of the economy, the world economy, actually grew by about 3.7%. Now, how much will the global GDP increase in USD if the construction industry kept pace with the rest of the economy in terms of its productivity improvement, in terms of its growth? Again, large numbers, at least $2 trillion is what we're hearing. So, there's a lot at stake. Purely from a business angle, it makes a lot of sense, but also from the ability to, provide an infrastructure that is more safe, that's more secure, that's more sustainable. I think, clearly there's a huge opportunity here amidst all of these challenges in this engineering construction industry. So with that, I want to particularly focus on 3 or 4 areas rather than looking at, the entire spectrum of things that we could do as a part of innovation. I want to talk particularly about how digital engineering and connected data provide an opportunity for innovation. Then generative design and AI are very much hot topics, and they've been so in the last few years. But today's time with ChatGPT and Bard, clearly everyone is talking about it. IoT and big data are playing a key role, but will play a much larger role. When you talk about the innovation that it could drive in the engineering and construction industry, offsite manufacturing, there are some examples, but clearly there's huge potential for this to become a key, tool for innovation. And 3D printing, again, in some industries, it has started to take shape, but construction lends itself very well to this technique, to this technology. And ultimately, I think it's about transforming the industry for a larger purpose. So these are the opportunities and, application of technologies I'd like to really touch upon as we go into the rest of this discussion. So the first point that I'd like to focus on is digital engineering and connected data. And I think probably everyone is aware, but just to remind ourselves, really, what are we talking here in the engineering and construction industry context? Digital engineering is really looking at, a geometric model data, starting with the 3D model and enriching it with a lot of metadata about, the cost, the schedule, the carbon footprint, the vendor details, and all of that, to be able to capture all the data as a golden thread of data over the life of the project, capturing all the information that is relevant for the asset as it goes from design to manufacturing to construction and eventually into operate and maintenance phase. So typically in the engineering and construction industry, which has been largely 2D based, the starting point was really to move from 2D to 3D, and then people thought, okay, we have innovated, and this is going to future proof our business and going to take away all the productivity and the cost issues that we are dealing with. But that is not the case, because clearly creating a 3D model with the geometrical information is just the first step. But really, putting in all the information that you need and capturing it through that project life cycle will pay off, where operate and maintenance phase kicks in, because that's where most of the losses or the cost erosion, or the profit erosion happens really, and the cost accumulation happens. So I'd like to talk about one particular use case that probably will resonate with some of the people that are aware of this building. So the State of Unity is a more recent project that was built where Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel statue was erected, and in Gujarat. And one key point that I want to mention here is that when you look at what has helped them to build this monumental statue, it's like massive project that ran for about 54 months, and huge amount of concrete and materials were involved in bringing this to life. But the key thing is, when you look at Turner Townsend and other key players like Meinhardt who were involved in the design phase itself, they use the BIM technology, Tekla, as the authoring tool, which enable the engineers to very accurately, model the building itself, as in the structure itself, assess the parameters like scheduling, looking at the equipment, the kind of material that will go into fabrication and erection. Also, planning the timing of the schedule, the timing of the construction, and ultimately looking at, how it will eventually, withstand any sort of weather conditions. I think the starting point is important to get right, and that's what they did with the 3D, technology of Tekla as the authoring tool. And we gather that they were able to complete this whole project 2 months ahead of schedule, and with an efficiency gain reportedly of close to 25%. And I'm told that the construction cost is something close to about, $500 million. And I think 25% on that sort of scale is quite substantial. So it is a case where, using innovative ways of designing the structure, and by, successfully implementing it, has actually paid off for this particular, use case. And essentially, I would say that while digital technology provides a backbone, the future is all about connected data. And I'd like to build on that point as we move forward. The second point I want to touch about is generative design, because I think this is again a very interesting, take on innovation by using generative design. Autodesk, which is a leader in authoring software authoring tools in the engineering and construction industry, very successfully applied this, and probably quite a few of you already know. But they built their Toronto office by using generative design to capture the requirements of their 250 odd employees in terms of their preferences, the desk height, the lighting, the ambient temperature, and a range of parameters. And they fed this into their design tool, the generative design tool called Project Discovery. And out of the myriad options that it gave, they were able to pick and choose a few and then iterate it again, so kind of generate some option, then, kind of run it past the team, and then they evolved it, they again evaluated it, and then put it through that cycle, and eventually the final, option got selected. So this was for me a classic case where innovatively they were able to apply one of the latest technologies of generative design, which helped them to integrate, a rule-based geometric design with some tangible goals, and then they were able to automatically generate, evaluate in quick time, reducing the cycle of this whole activity, which if done sequentially, I'm told, would have taken 1 to 2 years. I mean, the number of options that was put through this process was just humongous. So I think this is just a starting point, but it opens the doors for a number of opportunities, by applying this innovation to really improve or enhance the user experience, enhance the experience of the occupants of buildings, really. So this is why I think it's worth talking about this in this forum. Then, without further ado, I just want to touch upon how IoT and big data are going to be fundamentally big game changers. A lot of companies and manufacturing, particularly in the manufacturing industry, have already started to build factories of the future. For example, I know one large manufacturer of trucks and SUVs and cars has already built a factory of the future, which is sort of automated, mechanized, robotized from start to finish, where IoT and sensors play a big role, and big data is really kind of the foundation on which it's able to not just capture the information, but also analyze it, pick up the trigger points, drive interventions, and able to also more efficiently run the plant. So I think big data and IoT have myriad applications, but when you talk in the context of the built environment, particularly for big smart cities, which is again something that's excited a number of countries, and India is no exception. There have been a few cities identified as smart cities. There are various areas in which innovative ways of doing this has helped. For example, looking at smart meters, looking at smart parking systems, looking at smart waste management, looking at capturing information, about the weather conditions and coastal areas where, the risk of floods can occur. I think we have some use cases across the globe where, countries and organizations have started to apply this and are able to drive, smarter solutions, more efficient solutions, more predictable sort of, environments in which you can build your infrastructure. But again, looking at the whole spectrum of the construction industry itself, still, a very small percentage of organizations are really able to apply these, to good use. But clearly, this is something that if you go back to the earlier slide, it's about doing things differently for greater good. I think this is a key innovative, technology that's going to play a huge role as we move forward in the engineering and construction industry. So we're just moving to the next section, which is about offsite manufacturing. And here again, a number of articles are written, and I see companies are playing a small role in building this, sort of factory of the future, and offsite manufacturing is also an element that they are bringing into this. However, I think the thing that we have not yet done is to really take it as a huge innovative opportunity, because when you still go and look at those, huge projects that are announced, whether it's in the commercial space or in the residential space, and especially I'm talking from an India standpoint, there are very few players that are still, believing in the value that this innovation can bring. But just to take a case in point, Langeroog, which is in the UK, has an offsite manufacturing facility because they believe that by leveraging this technology, they will be able to provide faster kind of buildings. They'll be able to put the structures together much faster. The cost can be minimized. Repeatability is high. And there's also an opportunity to reduce waste if you know exactly the right dimensions which you're going to bring the components. So there are some brilliant examples and use cases that are happening in different parts of the world. But I think the potential to do this is far bigger than what we're seeing today. But it's an innovation that's going to be very value adding, not from just from the perspective of cost savings, but more so from the perspective of safety, from the perspective of sustainability, and reducing waste. So these are some of the technologies I think that we should be looking at, from the industry standpoint. 3D printing. So again, when you talk about 3D printing, I of course read about a huge housing project in Nantes in Africa, which had applied this technology very successfully. And then it's really when you try to understand what it is about, it's really creating a three-dimensional object layer by layer, and we call it additive manufacturing, right? And it's really done at scale. The possibility to do it at scale is very high, and it's really done very rapidly, where by using less material, you're able to very quickly come up with identical sort of products or, structures, if you like. So in India, Indian Institute of Technology, Madras, actually founded a startup called Twasta Manufacturing Solutions. And they actually developed India's first 3D printing house about 2 years back. So this was done by using a specialty concrete that it had developed to print large-scale structures in short period of time.
Class webinar. It's okay, innovation.
Hello. I think somebody has to go on mute, please.
Mr. Jesus Iyer, please, can you please go on? Geetha ma'am, you'll be able to mute them. I'm not able to do it. If you can mute,
okay.
Please click on the name and you'll be able to mute them. Sorry.
Okay. Thank
you.
So Twasta Manufacturing has not only developed its own material mix, but it's also been able to build an indigenous 3D printer. So these innovations are changing the paradigm of being able to quickly. Sorry.
Geetha ma'am, if you're able to, you can actually. You should be able to mute. You should be able to mute the person.
So I need to come out of this window, or
no? Actually, if you please click on the more against the name, I think he's going to do it. Coming back. Yes, please go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry, please go ahead.
Right. Okay, thank you. So I think I'm now coming to the end of my section. So which is really, I want to mention that innovation eventually has to serve a larger purpose. Apart from the fact that it has to add value, I truly believe for innovation to, kind of become more fundamental to the way we do our work, the way we think and the way we behave, it has to serve a larger purpose. And for me, the two things that are very closely connected with the engineering and construction industry, which is decarbonization and eventually, supporting the journey towards net zero. I do believe that, few things will be really pertinent, which is digital platforms, digital models and platforms. So we can see that already, there are digital platforms like excess material exchange. What this does is it connects, organizations that are trying to trade off their excess materials with someone who can buy it and recycle and reuse it. What they do is to tag those materials, then they kind of track and trace the movement, and then eventually they enable the transaction to happen. It's fantastic because when such platforms start to proliferate, it just makes it easier. And when you have your systems well oiled to be able to, integrate what you're doing and the output of what you're doing to something that can be easily, kind of integrated with what's happening on this platform, then it provides an ecosystem where we can drive circularity. Because I think this is about adding value across the entire life cycle, and there are multiple players, as I mentioned earlier on. So, we are going to see the proliferation of such models and platforms where different players and different, actors in the ecosystem are going to contribute to this larger purpose of decarbonization. But this presents, I would say, a huge opportunity for this sector. AI and analytics, it doesn't need a reiteration, but clearly, it's going to play a huge role also in enabling, as I said, decarbonization and net zero. And actually, when you talk about, for example, sustainability, even when you create a digital twin of a building, or a railway line or any, sort of asset in the infrastructure sector, there is an element of carbon capture that, you can actually, weave into your digital twin, be able to actually also do analytics to be able to suggest, what should be replaced. For example, if some material is high carbon intensive, then you can suggest what can it be replaced with. So refurbishments can happen. So a small example, but there is a lot of potential in terms of decarbonization, but also in terms of, reusing materials, right? Because then you can mitigate the waste. Blockchain and IoT are also going to play a key role here. I also mentioned about Internet of Things, but also blockchain is playing a huge role, especially in tracing and tracking, and also in providing that immutability and provenance in terms of the data that goes through the blockchain technology. Of course, there are issues around, humongous amount of computing power and all of that in some of these technologies. And I think, thought leaders are looking at those aspects, and they're coming up with ways to, kind of tie it to maybe, carbon credits, or being able to, come up with technologies that require less, computing power or less mining when you talk about blockchain. So I think these efforts are also ongoing, but I think the future is definitely moving towards application of the right technology to provide the right value and to serve the larger purpose. And as I said earlier, digital manufacturing, not just for manufacturing and quickly coming up with structures, but also for facilitating disassembly of buildings with minimal wastage, right? So these are some of the benefits of innovating for a larger purpose. And with that, I would really like to summarize here. The future focus in the engineering and construction sector is going to be pivoted on sustainability and really, innovating to reduce the construction cycle time and cost, eventually to enhance productivity, which has been plaguing the industry for decades now, and the time has come, enhance safety, and clearly, improving the well-being of people, and finally giving a fantastic, user experience or citizen experience. And everyone will play a role in this journey. I mean, when you talk about smart grids again, it's two-way street, right? I think we are also talking about consumers becoming producers, called prosumers, if you talk about smart grids. So I think the paradigm is changing, and the way we will engage, as multiple players is changing with digitalization and with big data. And clearly with digitalization, there's some level of disintermediation. And that's why, you are going to work more in an ecosystem where, a set of people, organizations, or, players that you would have seen as competition may not be pure competition, as we move ahead. So we will be collaborating and sharing information, because ultimately it's going to be a win-win. Procurement models have to change, because, it has to enable, the technology adoption. It can't be outdated. Today, I think that is still a journey. It's still happening in pockets, but that has to move more towards value-based, outcomes rather than purely, time and material-based outcome, as an example. Robotic manufacturing supplemented by connectivity could become more commonplace, because we are seeing that in action, as I said, in India and some of the countries outside of India, particularly. And skills of future workforce, this means that we'll have to evolve as well. Because I think, while we say that technology has to change, a lot of it also has to mean that the people that are, doing the work today, they are not going to completely, become out of work. We do need them, but we do need them to upskill themselves, or really pick up the skills that are more relevant for future, and help the economy and, the globe really, kind of evolve and become more responsible, and, working towards a more sustainable, ecosystem. Innovation eventually has to be directed towards helping industry move at pace in all the above areas. And I would finally say that, last but not the least, mindset and culture hold the key to innovating for success, because, how much ever process or tools or technology you have, it's ultimately open-mindedness of the people, that are involved. The human mind has to be open to keep doing things differently, to innovate, to get better. And the culture of being open, to learning, being open to being challenged, and to be able to accept change is very important. Because without all of this, innovation can't thrive. So I truly believe that these are going to be very important for the engineering and construction industry. And with that, I would like to conclude my session, and would be happy to pass back to you, Mr. Sri.
Thank you very much, Geetha ma'am. There are a few questions here. I think probably we will take them probably after Gunnar's presentation as well. So thank you for a very nice and eye-opening presentation in the area of engineering and construction, which I don't get to hear a lot. I mean, great to hear about the perspective. And also one point that kept in my mind was this generative design and the power of being able to develop options. That is where we sort of need a lot of help. I think amazing that how these tools are helping us to come out with options and helping us to identify the solution. So thank you very much, Geetha ma'am. Thank you very much. So moving on to the second speaker of the day, we have Mr. Gunnar Storfeldt. He is an innovation management expert and CEO of Amplify. He comes with extensive experience managing radical innovation initiatives in various sectors. In his illustrious career, he has held various roles including the role of Vice President of Global Business Development for Ericsson. I would like to invite Mr. Gunnar Storfeldt to introduce us to the 2 of the 8 principles of innovation, namely exploiting insights and managing uncertainty. Over to you, Gunnar.
Thank you so much for that and for the nice introduction, Sri. So sharing my screen. Okay, let's see.
Gunnar, I think 2 screens.
Yeah, right. Let's redo that. That should be the right one. So I would like to begin with this poetic way of describing how novel and groundbreaking opportunities comes with significant uncertainty, because that's the topic that we are going to talk about here today. It's from the Swedish author and Nobel Prize laureate Thomas Tranströmer. To find the most beautiful glade in the forest, one must dare to get lost for a little while. And it puts the finger on the essence of our discipline, the discipline of innovation management. So to find truly novel opportunities, we must explore unfamiliar domains where we might not have been before, or maybe no one has been there before. So as innovators in search for novel opportunities, we must move from the known knowns to the unknown unknowns. And that is a journey where we will face significant uncertainty. It's a learning odyssey. To sustain our performance, our innovation performance, we must do this journey over and over again. And we must be systematic in the way we proceed in our undertakings. So when we together with our clients navigate the unknown, we systematically gather data and information, which we then can turn into knowledge. And our hope is to uncover profound and unique knowledge, insights that unlock novel opportunities. However, as we learn, we also realize how little we know. So every new, powerful, profound insight comes with a lot of questions. And those questions pose a lot of uncertainty in our endeavors. And to close the gap between the uncertainties and where we need to be to generate relevant ideas, we need to make assumptions. And we need to make a lot of assumptions. Assumptions about, for example, technical feasibility, economical viability, regulatory compliance, sustainability. There are a lot of different assumptions that we need to make. And of course, to build, to generate compelling ideas and concepts, these assumptions must appear to us as knowledge, but they're actually fake knowledge. And we must prove that we are right through formulating strong hypotheses which we can test to be able to make progress in our innovation processes. So the likelihood of succeeding is dependent on us exploiting strong, deep insights, managing uncertainties, and dealing with a lot of assumptions systematically. And for that purpose, we have the 8 innovation management principles, and specifically the principle of exploiting insights and managing uncertainty. In the previous session, Magnus talked about realization of value, which was also pointed out by Geetha, that the difference between an invention and innovation is the value realization. And Magnus also talked about the importance of having a systems approach to connect the dots, to make sure that we have all the elements in place for us to be systematic and increase the likelihood of success. But today we will focus on exploiting insights and managing uncertainty. And exploiting insights, that specific principle talks about the following, that we systematically need to build new knowledge to unlock opportunity. And for example, the insights could be about stated or unstated needs of interested parties. That could be customers or anyone in our value chain. And to be able to gain that knowledge, that profound and unique knowledge, we need to regularly explore internal and external sources of information. So that's the core of the exploiting insight principle, and we'll get into details shortly. Managing uncertainty is about making sure that we can face the uncertainties and manage risks continuously. And for that purpose, we need to systematically experiment based on strong hypotheses. But we also need to be able to balance a portfolio of innovation opportunities, because we will not succeed in every one. So we need to have a collection that we can manage systematically and in a balanced way. And we'll talk about that towards the end of my speech. Today, we will look at 3 practical aspects of those principles: how to uncover deep insights, test hypotheses, and manage portfolios. So let's dive into it. Uncovering insights. So what do we mean by an insight? Well, insights are profound and unique knowledge that unlocks opportunities. So let me give you a very, very simple real-world example from a project we did with a chocolate manufacturer almost a decade ago. They came to us and said, we see a threat. There is a change in consumer behavior and preferences. We're faced with competition from more exclusive chocolate, imported chocolates. And we're losing shelf space in the grocery stores and our previously strong market position. So we initiated an innovation program with them. And in one of the early exercises with them, we said, have you ever explored your own product? Looked at it from maybe the consumer's perspective. So we bought their chocolate, we placed it on the table in a workshop situation, and said, use your product the way the customer would use it, your consumers would use it. And what do you see? And what do you think they saw? First, they thought we were crazy. We know our product, of course. But watching it for a little while, they realized that we've turned the chocolate bar upside down. Why have we spent so much time on making a nice front end when we're showing the back end of our product? And this is a very, very simple example of an insight. It's right under their nose. They've been doing this for decades, but they haven't seen it. They haven't even thought of it. They're fixated and they have an orthodox thinking about their business. So that's an example, a very simple, rudimentary example what an insight could be. It could be right under your nose. You haven't seen it, but there is a possibility to uncover it. And then, of course, you can generate a lot of different solutions, ideas for how to solve this problem. So the key to unlock opportunities is to generate insights. And you can do that systematically by connecting and combining knowledge from different perspectives, both external and internal sources and your external and internal contexts. These are just a few examples of perspectives that we use together with our clients. Of course, we study consumer needs, but we also need to look at the organizations and their sector or industries, orthodoxies, dominating logics, for example. We look at emerging technologies, new competencies that might be relevant, new business models, substitute something that could actually threaten you from a completely new, different direction, analogies and anomalies. So these are just a few of the things that you can study and learn from. And in the intersection of knowledge from different perspectives, you increase the likelihood of uncovering deep insights. Insights are the goal of your innovation endeavors. So let me give you one concrete example. In 2004, Electrolux came to us based on what their new group CEO at the time said, that they should develop its offering based on a profound understanding of the consumer needs instead of taking off from their technical skills and capabilities. Basically flipping their product development processes from a product and technology focused development process to a consumer and needs focused process. And as a result, a lot of initiatives and programs were started. A new segmentation model for the consumers were created, and initiatives to really understand and study the customers by, for example, ethnographical field studies, deep interviews, lead user workshops, etc., etc. A lot of different tools, techniques, and methods to gain a better understanding of the consumer's spoken and unspoken needs. So such a program, in one of those programs, this short consumer story came back based on a set of different insights gained through those research efforts. My home needs constant cleaning. There's gravel in the hallway, cat hair all over the rug, and my children are sitting in the sofa eating snacks. My vacuum cleaner, the old one, is stacked away in the closet. I don't have the time for a thorough cleaning, but I still want the house to look tidy every day. So putting this in the hands of the engineer at pre-development, they thought we were crazy and said, this is not a technical specification. No, it's not, but it's a story told from a customer perspective, and it expresses what they need. Please go ahead and see what you can do to solve it. And the process that was initiated ended up in one of Electrolux's most successful product launches. The Ergo Rapido, a multi-double function vacuum cleaner. And 10 years after the launch, in 2004, they've sold over 10 million units of it. So a story about what insights can do for you and your consumers. So, of course, we need a systematic approach to uncover deep insights. So combining different perspectives and knowledge from different perspectives. And we use a 5-step procedure for that. So the first thing is to plan. What perspectives do we need to research? We need to go out there and collect data and information by doing observations. Bring that information home, organizing it, categorizing it, making sure that we can transfer that information into knowledge, connecting the dots between different knowledge elements, new and old, and by that, increasing the likelihood for taking the leap into insights, profound and unique knowledge that really unlock opportunities. And all insights are not relevant, so we need to select the most profound ones And then we need to be able to share the knowledge as Electrolux did in their consumer story. So everyone can basically experience the same wow as when the team discovered the insight and take action on it. So insights play a crucial role in all aspects of an innovation management system. When we establish our innovation strategies to identify and understand opportunities, managing our portfolios and executing our innovation processes. And the interesting thing is that in our experience, most organizations focus on ideas. But it's really the insights and the knowledge behind the insights that matters. And only when we have really strong insights, we can also make strong and relevant assumptions. And assumptions are kind of the fake knowledge that we need to come up with to deal with uncertainties. So the next thing is to be able to deal with uncertainties. And how can we do that systematically? Now, when we talk about uncertainties, what do we mean? And can we give some examples? Of course, uncertainties could be related to anything, basically. Customer benefits and values. Even if we have an insight about an unserved need, we really need to understand the true benefits and value to the customer or the consumer. Or any other stakeholder or interested party in our value chain, by the way. It could be about technical feasibility. It could be about regulatory compliance. Are we sustainable, for example? Development time and cost, price levels and structures, and our own internal and external capabilities, structural or cultural. Do we have the right ecosystem in place to really make something out of this insight? So these are just examples of critical uncertainties, and we have to make assumptions, a lot of assumptions to deal with those. And you don't have to take my word for it. This is Rita McGrath, professor at Columbia University, who talks about assumptions and the difficulties in dealing with assumptions.
Doing innovation requires operating in what I call a high assumption to knowledge ratio world, and that requires making a lot of assumptions. And human beings aren't very good at dealing with assumptions. So what I think most executives miss is the need to shift the way that they lead and the way that they manage from a low assumption world to a high assumption world. And it has a completely different internal logic to it. And so making that shift, I think, is really problematic for people.
Right. So, and I encourage you to check out Rita's publications, written several strong books in the field of innovation and innovation management. So highly recommended. So what she's telling us is that we need to have a process, an innovation process where we can transform assumptions, fake knowledge into real knowledge, verifiable knowledge. And that's what the innovation processes are all about. It's a learning journey. And to be able to be effective in dealing with assumptions and reducing uncertainties and managing risks, we need to experiment and iterate. We need to be able to formulate and test our hypothesis. So what is a hypothesis? Well, an hypothesis is an explanation of our assumptions that may be true, but has not yet been proven. And we use a 5-step process to identify the most critical assumptions in an innovation initiative, formulate the hypothesis, prioritize the hypothesis to understand which one must we test first, the most critical one, because those might be showstoppers. Then design smart experiments. We want to spend a little to learn a lot, and then run the experiments to verify or reject our hypothesis. So typically we want to spend as little as possible in testing our hypothesis as early as possible. So these are just a few examples of lo-fi simple prototypes. This is an old one, the first Palm Pilot lo-fi prototype, just testing the hypothesis around the form factor, the size. It's a plank with a kind of a printout interface on it and a wooden stick that makes it possible to test the form factor, design, and the usability of the device in a very, very early stage, of course. This is another one. Geetha talked about 3D printing. This is a simple prototype of a 3D printer, just testing the user interface, how you interact with the machine, and also creating this one. With this one, you can create other rapid prototypes. So that's just a couple of examples of rapid prototypes that you can use in low-fi prototypes. Now, one company you should study, I just want to make sure that I'm still sharing my screen because I received an error message here.
Yeah, you share your screen again, Gunnar. I think we lost your screen here.
Okay.
Yes, it's visible now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So these are just a couple of examples of really simple prototypes that you can use to test early on, test your hypothesis and reduce uncertainties. And you might read stacks of management books, but there's nothing more learning and telling that what SpaceX is currently doing with the Starship program and the new rocket system they are developing. A fully reusable, a lot of different hypotheses. Can we build a 100% reusable rocket? Can we skydive it through the atmosphere? Can we do a soft vertical propulsive landing? Et cetera, et cetera. Testing a lot of different things that have never been done in the space industry before. So I really encourage you to look at and kind of follow their progress. It's fully public on their YouTube channel. And I just want to play you a brief clip demonstrating one of their tests and experiments and listening to what they're saying about their hypothesis, what they're testing, collecting data, even if the outcome is maybe not what you would like to see.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Minutes, we are handing off to the LOX tank. We are beginning to flip to horizontal. And the white cloud, the plume you were seeing was intentional. There is a liquid oxygen dump. We've now transitioned to horizontal and beginning the subsonic test portion of the flight, where we check out the aft and the forward flaps to hold the vehicle stability as we descend back to the landing pad.
Land intro.
6 minutes, 10 seconds into flight. We're down beneath 1.5 kilometers. We're preparing to restart 2 engines, flip the vehicle vertical, then transition to 1 engine for the landing burn. As you can see from the scene, we had again another great flight up to the 10-kilometer apogee. We demonstrated the ability to transition the engines to the landing propellant tanks. The subsonic reentry looked very good and stable like we saw again last December, so we've got a lot of good data on flap control. And again, we've just got to work on that landing a little bit, but we'll find out from the team as they go through the data. We were in contact with telemetry all the way down. So all told, another great, and a reminder, this is a test flight, second time we've flown Starship in this configuration. We've got a lot of good data, and the primary objective to demonstrate control of the vehicle in the subsonic reentry look to be very good, and we will take a lot out of that. And with that, we're going to wrap up today's webcast. Thanks for logging on and watching, and we'll be back with another Starship in the near future.
So testing one hypothesis after the other, a complex system, it's spectacular, but actually doing it in a systematic way, one step at a time, formulating hypothesis, testing hypothesis. And it took a few prototypes, but then they did the soft vertical landing. And just for the fun of it, let's watch and see where they are today. A couple of years later, launching the full rocket system just a couple of weeks ago.
6, 4, 3. Your chamber pressure is nominal. 0 post-launch flight operations.
2+43 seconds into the test flight of the inaugural Starship vehicle. Tower cleared, we're into pitch over. Propulsion reports first stage engines nominal. What a sight from the ground cameras at Starbase. We're flying at twice the thrust of the Saturn V heading to space. Onboard view from Starship.
Yeah, it does appear to be spinning, but I do want to remind everyone that everything after clearing the tower was icing on the cake.
Starship just experienced what we call a rapid unscheduled disassembly, or a RUD, during ascent. But now this was a development test. This is the first test flight of Starship, and the goal was to gather the data, and as we said, clear the pad and get ready to go again. So you never know exactly what's going to happen, but as we promised, excitement is guaranteed.
So if you want to see live in a spectacular way, a highly exaggerated way, how this process plays out, I encourage you to follow SpaceX and their Starship program. Now, the astonishing thing about that company is that in parallel with this, they're actually launching on a weekly basis payloads for NASA and for different companies, satellites, personnel, supplies up to orbit. So that's where they actually make their money, and then this is their future experimenting and testing one hypothesis after another. No one has done it before, and it's not only the system itself, it's also the manufacturing processes. Geetha talked about the importance of innovating in manufacturing processes, and that that is highly relevant to SpaceX. How can we make a rocket like this, a system like this, as cheap and fast as possible? So the innovation process is a core function of the innovation process is to move assumptions from assumptions to knowledge And we can do that in a systematic manner, dealing with uncertainties and assumptions, and of course, then also reducing and managing the risks. And an interesting fact is that to be able to do a thorough experimentation, you also need to have good assumptions. And for that purpose, you need to uncover insights, because it's only when you have the insights that you can formulate really relevant and strong assumptions. And that's a problem if your focus is on ideas, because then the assumptions are basically hidden. The really substantial assumptions are really hidden to you. So starting insights precede ideas, and it's important to be proactive and start with exploring different perspectives, gaining insights, and formulating relevant assumptions before moving into generating proposals for creative solutions, which are basically what ideas is all about. So the final aspect of managing uncertainties are managing your innovation portfolio. So now you have a set of initiatives, and you are doing your insight work, and you are testing your hypothesis, generating ideas, building concepts, and so forth. All those initiatives need to be managed. Some will succeed and some will struggle getting through the innovation process. And quite a few of them will, of course, not make it. So what you must have is a strong portfolio management, beginning with exploration portfolio, containing initiatives where the assumption to knowledge ratio is high, and then gradually reducing and populate the uncertainties and populating the development portfolio and deployment portfolio with relevant initiatives. And of course, the deployment portfolio is all about your offerings in terms of solutions, products, services, and so forth. Talking about the exploration portfolio, it's essential that you find your own mix of more close to the core exploration and more distant exploration. So basically moving and making sure from the known knowns to the unknown knowns, and having a relevant distribution of initiatives over that distance. And that's part of your strategic thinking for your innovation endeavors, which we will talk about in a later seminar. Just to give an example, we have had the opportunity to work with the Shell Game Changer, maybe the longest standing innovation unit in any company or industry. And the Game Changer portfolio, the early innovation portfolios, they have always been able to prove that they have a high potential value, approximately from year to year, $2 billion. They have a proven track record of moving the right stuff into the development portfolio and being successful. So 30% of the Shell technology ventures are based on former Game Changer initiatives. And also in their offering, their deployment portfolio, 40% of what they're offering today has an origin in the Game Changer portfolio. So this is how you would like to see your innovation initiatives cascade into something that you can offer. And on the way, of course, being able to manage all the uncertainties and assumptions you have to make. So those are the three aspects of the two principles, exploiting insights and managing uncertainty, that we will cover today. We have quite a few principles to talk about in upcoming seminars. But if you want to learn more, there's an excellent learning journey about learning journeys that you can take. This is a 14-module training program which covers all the aspects of systematic innovation management. It's an online training, self-paced, with a lot of good content in it and original materials. So I encourage you to check that out, get in touch with Innomantra or Amplify. And I will also like to promote this book where you can find some really strong and good cases for a systems approach and changing the dynamics and impact of innovation management. So by that, I would like to hand back to you, Sri, for some questions and comments.
Thank you, Gunnar. It was a very exciting and captivating presentation. You were able to provide perspectives about the importance of the principles. Of course, customer insight, how detailed do we get the customer insight is very important. And also how we're able to manage uncertainties and providing an example through the SpaceX project as well. So thank you very much. Looking forward for more to understand about other principles as well. I can't wait for a session that is coming up on how my organization stands, your assessment perspectives is coming as part of the standards as well. I can't wait for the standards to come out and being able to assess our organizations and being able to provide the perspective. So thank you very much, Gunnar, for your presentation. We have probably a few minutes for questions. I know there have been a few questions coming up from Prakash. Prakash, do you have any specific question to ask now? I know you've been giving in the chat, Prakash.
Yeah, good evening and probably good morning to my European friends. I think it's quite an interesting one, both by Mrs. Geetha Ramamoorthi and Mr. Gunnar. Few of the questions, because now I'm also a keen follower of the innovation, and I keep thinking about this innovation. Are we reinventing any wheel, or did we have this thinking in the earlier past? So that's why one question which I felt, maybe two relevant questions which I put in the chat box, is generally we think that seeing is believing, but for innovation, you have to believe to see the things in reality. So that's one question, probably it's addressed to Mr. Gunnar. And also, I think, I think quite a few people know that there is a lot of ancient wisdom hidden in various cultures. So should we actually look at that as a part of innovation? These are the two questions from my side.
So, Gunnar, you want to go with the first? Yes.
Okay, so seeing is believing, or believing is seeing. Yes, maybe a bit philosophical, but my thoughts on that. Seeing is believing. I think, I mean, the innovation process moves from believing is seeing and into seeing is believing. That's what the whole innovation process is all about. Making assumptions, formulating hypotheses. That's not real. It's fake. But we just have to make it. We have to dream, and then we need to make sure that we can systematically work through those dreams about a different future by doing the things that we talked about, gaining insights, dealing with the assumptions, and make it real, because it needs to generate a real value. So it has to be real. So it's a combination, I would say, and a journey from one to the other. Magnus, would you like to step in and maybe give a perspective on that? Or
I think the ability of envisioning is really key here. So I fully agree with this statement, and I think it's a good one, and we should use it to describe the journey from intent to value. So thank you so much for providing that.
Thank you, Magnus, Gunnar. One more question that Prakash had was, does ancient wisdom and knowledge have any relevance today in the context of innovation? Geetha ma'am, would you like to take that?
Yeah, I will share my perspective, but I'm sure Gunnar and others will also have a good views to share. I see it this way, actually. The ancient wisdom and knowledge can sometimes when you actually go into it and try to find out, how they surmounted a problem or how they, achieved something, it can give inspiration. It can spur some brilliant ideas. So yes, in some sense, yes, definitely. Why not? I think, we sometimes underestimate what was achieved maybe, in the past. And we are generally more comfortable, like, to use the word seeing is believing. So we see something and then we believe it, but something which we were not part of, but which happened, years back or, decades back, we tend to underestimate. So why not? I think that's a good point. It can be an inspiration. I mean, that's how I see it really. But I'll be happy for Gunnar and others also to share their views.
Thank you, ma'am. Well said.
Well, I actually almost cited Socrates when I talked about the true wisdom. Wisdom is understanding that you don't know anything, and that's the situation you end up with in the middle of the innovation process, when you have some insights and you have some new knowledge, and then you understand. Just because I've learned something new, you open the Pandora's box with questions and concerns and issues, basically your uncertainties, and you have to deal with them. So I think it's highly relevant. I think from a philosophical point of view and wisdom, we can use a lot of it in our discipline of innovation management. Nothing new under the sun.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment. So are there any other questions, or I think we can close? I think we are past the time. I think we will close the session for today. I would like to thank each and every one of you. I'd like to thank Geetha Ramamoorthi and also Gunnar for their presentations. Very, very inspiring. I have to go back and look at the videos, and I really love the insight part of it, how we're able to bring insights to provide value to the customers as well. So finally, the one announcement, the CXO Forum of Systematic Innovation Management webinars are scheduled every second Wednesday of the month. The next session is scheduled for the 14th of June. That'll be a Wednesday. All right. So thank you all. Thank you very much for your time, and namaste.